fans to 2K Sports. I'm Damon Bruce. Friday Hoops Fest coming up next. It's the Detroit Pistons going up against the Utah Jazz. And that's a wrap for me here in the studio. Now let's send you out to Kevin Harlan, Steve Kerr, Clark Kellogg, and Doris Burke. I'll see you again at halftime.
Just earlier, the fans on their feet as the national anthem rang out throughout the arena. It's time for the NBA, live on 2K Sports. This is Kevin Harlan with Steve Kerr and Clark Kellogg alongside, and our sideline reporter tonight is Doris Burke. We've got a chance now for our starting lineups from point guard to center. This game should be a good one. First for the Pistons, Jennings out there with Rodney Stuckey. And it's Andre Drummond at 6'11", 275 pounds, the big athletic presence out of the University of Connecticut inside at center. Then it's Smith, and it's Monroe in at the 4 spot. And looking at Utah, pairing up in the backcourt, Trey Burke and Alec Burks. And in the middle, standing 6'11", 270, the talented scorer and rebounder out of Turkey, the big man, Enes Kanter. And it's Hayward, and it's Favors in at the 4.
You know, Detroit, despite how they struggled, did a few good things last year, even though they fell way short of the playoffs. But playing against the Western Conference, playing well against the Western Conference, wasn't one of the things they did well.
And it's the Pistons to start out. Now here's Jennings, defended by Burke. It's Jennings with the drive. Drummond passes to Jennings. Smooth as silk on the finger roll. Jennings has got the game going with his first points of the game for Detroit. Well, as you mentioned, with the Pistons and the West, just a 4-26 record for them, Clark, and with the second worst in the entire league. Steve, only one win better than the Bobcats, who had a league-low 3 in that category. What went wrong there?
Well, it's the youth for sure. They made a lot of mental mistakes. They didn't have that one player who could consistently create his own shot and open up space. That's one of the reasons they went out and got Josh Smith, to try to be that player and that leader.
And so it's the Pistons getting on the board first. And the pass to Monroe. Here's Stuckey. Brooks pulls it in.
You know, that mid-range jump shot is not his strong suit, even when he gets a good look like that.
Inside. Here's Hayward. Bounces high off the rim and drops.
Boy, he can be a matchup nightmare inside the paint.
Now the Pistons with it. Now let's go over to Doris Burke, who was able to talk with Tyrone Corbett.
He said that one of the players they're keying in on defensively is Rodney Stuckey, adding he loves to use his size and his strength to play bully ball inside and get himself to the line. We've got to be physical with him without fouling. Guys, that'll take discipline. We'll see if they can strike the right balance on defense.
And thank you for that, Doris.
I think Greg Monroe offers a lot for a team. I mean, he's a big man who can pass and shoot at a high level. But the one thing he doesn't do is really protect the rim. He's not a shot blocker in the traditional sense of the word.
Going back to Greg Monroe in Detroit, not a big leaper or shot blocker, but they drafted Andre Drummond, number 9 overall last year. They should be making a very nice pairing for a long time.
Well, you think about Drummond, a super athlete and a shot blocker. Greg Monroe with his terrific skill level. It really does seem like Detroit has found its front court tandem for the next decade.
Now here's Drummond, the dish to Stuckey. Smith outside, Jennings. 5 to shoot. The Pistons working the ball around now. Here's Monroe. And Derek Favors pulls it down.
Well, that's a bad miss right there. I mean, you'd like to see him be a little more assertive when he has such good position.
And that one's good. Burke.
3 straight makes to start this game. Looking good.
The Pistons have gone 2 for 4 from the field so far today. Jennings dishes to Stuckey. Jennings defended by Burke. Jennings kicks to Stuckey. Shoots. No luck. And Utah the other way now.
Well, really a promising young roster for the Utah Jazz team, guys. A lot of blue-chip talent there. I think in a couple of years, this team has a chance to be one of the best in the West.
And you got to give this Utah front office a lot of credit. You're right, Clark. They've only missed the playoffs 5 times in the last 30 seasons. Steve, that is a remarkable run.
What I like about Utah, too, Kevin, is that they seem to stay ahead of the curve. They make moves while they still have leverage. Peeling Carlos Boozer, Kirilenko, Deron Williams. So they've done a good job of getting value, getting assets, and continuing to look ahead.
Hayward hits them both.
Detroit really is one of the younger teams in the league as far as their core and future are concerned. It's always nice to kind of think, what might they become going forward? But they are going to struggle at times, especially on the road.
Now here's Jennings. Six to shoot. Right side Jennings. Monroe. And it's going to be a 24-second shot clock violation. They turn it over. Pistons did have big problems getting wins on the road, and that is one of the reasons why the fans were a bit frustrated with how the team developed over the course of last year. Steve, they just couldn't finish off games when they were the road team.
Yeah, that's right, Kevin. Just 11 and 30 away from the Palace. And, you know, when you're a young team, it takes a lot of mental toughness and growth to be able to close out games on the road. It's something they're still learning.
And Beatrix with the stuff. Well, now they're just going to town on it.
Yeah, you'd think these defenders would have done a little more to put a stop to that stuff, Kevin, but so far, no go.
Well, a phenomenal aerial assault there, fellas.
Pistons trail by 7, and the Pistons decide to take their first timeout right here.
You know, Utah usually matches up well with Eastern Conference teams because style of play is similar. Both Eastern Conference and the Jazz like to play a grinded-out physical game, and Utah has the bigs and the defensive mentality to thrive in a slower-paced game, and that's why they went 17 and 13 against the Eastern Conference.
Kyle Singler's checked in for Detroit. .46 left to play in the first. Stuckey passes to Monroe. And good coming on the assist by Rodney Stuckey. Monroe's got his second basket of the night. On back to the Jazz against the East. Did what they needed to do against the conference as a whole. Winning more than they lost, but they also, Steve, had some key setbacks.
And the big one that I can remember was last year where they had that 4-game road trip to the East Coast. They went 0-4. And that was when they saw their grasp on a playoff spot start to slip away.
Just over 3.5 minutes gone here in the first. Billups with the ball. Back to Singler. Dishes to Billups. Shot clock at 6. Jump shot is good. Billups has got his first points in this one.
You know, it's been interesting to see how Chauncey Billups' career has changed as he's grown. Early on, he was known more as an offensive point guard, and then he became a playmaker for the Pistons during that championship season in that era. And now he's really become a spot-up shooter and a dead-eye marksman for his club.
And that's not to say that he can't do anything else, but he has really stepped up his shooting from deep. Not a lot of guards can go from carrying the ball handling duties to being a catch-and-shoot guy, but Chauncey has made the transition quite smoothly.
Here is Lucas following the basket by Kyle Singler. Here's Evans. And a foul called on the shot. Got him on the way up that time, so he'll shoot 2 right here.
Well, and Jeremy Evans, the 2012 Slam Dunk champ, he may have come up short in the Slam Dunk contest last year, but boy, did he put on the show. Dunked over a work of art that depicted him dunking. Very meta.
And he knocks down the first one. And Jeremy Evans, 6'9", only about 200 pounds, but he is a high riser.
Yeah, great finisher around the rim. And tell you what, he's light, and maybe that helps him get so high off the floor. but it's fun to watch him in the open court.
The Pistons making a change here. Villanueva's checked in. That one misses.
One of the problems for the Pistons last season was they always seemed to come out after halftime flat. Just couldn't sustain the kind of intensity and focus needed to win consistently. That was a big part of why they had such a tough year.
We've got 22 seconds left in the first. Now here's Lucas. And there's the feed to Rush. And it's out of bounds. Utah able to retain possession here. Here's Lucas. Tie game in Utah. And we'll be back shortly for the start of the second quarter. And the second quarter getting underway. No team gaining an edge so far. What do you guys think about the Jazz here in this one?
And a good start for this club. I like the way they played together, really moved the ball and did a nice job offensively.
Yeah, excellent ball movement, and it's paid off on the scoreboard, too.
He kicks it to Evans. And he's knocked off course by the D. The foul called. He'll shoot free throws.
Well, you always hear about how loud this Jazz crowd is at home, and trust me, it is loud. They are a big part of why the Jazz have been so tough at home for so long, but the personnel of the Jazz has had something to do with that as well.
And that one misses. And as you said, the Jazz very tough at home as always, Clark, and 30 wins for them in this building last season, which usually, Steve, is enough to get you into the playoffs.
Yeah, that's an amazing stat. 30 home wins and you don't get in. Just shows you how difficult and how tough the Western Conference was.
Your Rebco's checked in for the Pistons. Good on the second free throw. So it's Detroit now. They trail by one. Passes it to Caldwell Pope. Marked down low that time, and he got the 3-second call. Kyle Singler, he's checked in for Caldwell Pope. Lucas with it. Cannot hit. Great D that time from Urepko. Now, here is Monroe.
Well, you love the skill level for Greg Monroe. I mean, he plays a Princeton-style offense at Georgetown. He's a terrific high-post passer, and he actually handles the ball really well for a guy of his size.
Singler dishes to Billups. They get the rebound. Now Monroe kicks to Villanueva. Feeds it to Billups. Second quarter, and we're just over a minute in. Pass to Monroe. And another shot, and the layup is up and in. Monroe's got 6.
I'll tell you what I love about him, his ability to finish even while absorbing contact. He is so strong, even with defenders hanging all over him. He continues to finish at the basket.
And I also really like his skill as a low-post passer, guys. He sees the whole court and doesn't hesitate to pass up his own shot if he can get the ball to a teammate for a better look.
And you mentioned the great hands for Greg Monroe. A nice soft touch, Steve, around the rim.
And also great at just hauling in rebounds, grabbing steals. He really has a nose for the ball.
The The first free throw is good.
For the Jazz last season, it really became an issue about the log jam inside. They had two established starters in Jefferson and Millsap and two young up-and-comers in Cantor and Favors, and there was an expectation that somebody would be moved, but the trading deadline passed, and they were all still there.
Caldwell Pope, he's checked in for Charlie Villanueva. So after making the first, he goes 1 for 2. Well, you would have thought that the Jazz would have made a deal one way or another, but it was hard for them as they were in the thick of a playoff race at the time, Steve, sort of tied their hands.
Well, if they weren't in that race, I think they might have sent one or two of those guys out to try to get some more assets for the future. As it was, they ended up losing Millsap and Al Jefferson, so it's incumbent on the young talent in that front court to now develop and really take over.
Let's go to our sideline reporter, Doris Burke. Doris, what do you have?
Gentlemen, a talented young front court duo for the Jazz in Derek Favors and Enes Kanter. This summer, they worked out with Jazz legend Karl Malone, one of the all-time great power forwards in NBA history. Whether it was positioning and a technical trick or just the mental aspects of taking on a star role, guys, you couldn't ask for a better teacher.
No question he can help. Thanks, Doris. Jazz trail by 4. And stolen by Billups. And he banks in the layup. Billups has got 8 here in the quarter.
Well, it looks like he's finally found his footing in this game. His first quarter was a real struggle, but he's got it going now.
Lucas kicks to Williams. He feeds it to Rush. Out of bounds. Detroit takes possession.
Such a careless pass. You've got to keep your head in the game here.
For the Pistons, Andre Drummond comes in for Greg Monroe. And Villanueva is subbed in for Urebko. Pistons leading by 6. They've definitely hit that groove offensively.
They sure have, guys. I mean, really aggressive. And I like that posture and mindset. Stay aggressive.
Yeah. Steve, you like groove, don't you?
I do. I love groove, Kevin, and I love the attack mode this team is in, too. I mean, they're really getting into the paint. They're getting whatever they want offensively. You know, never easy to come back from a torn Achilles, but Chauncey Billups did a pretty nice job of doing so last year after the Achilles shelved him for most of the 2011-12 season.
And what do you guys think so far about the offensive approach for Detroit?
And they're doing a fantastic job of finding the open man and getting easy looks.
They've established their presence in the paint tonight. Also, a lot of their scoring to this point coming from down low.
The first one falls. And going back to Chauncey, only played 22 games last year, but it was amazing, Clark. He was able to come back at all.
And Kevin, it helped that he was on a team where he almost never had to be the primary ball handler. That would have put a lot more pressure on that Achilles. But even though he moved okay, his numbers were down, and you have to wonder how many more years he has left. You know, with the players that Ennis had in front of him in the depth chart, he didn't have a lot of chances to show what he could do. It's almost as if he was being groomed like a backup QB would be.
Here's Singler. The basket good off the assist from Billups. 6 points now in the game for Kyle Singler. Jazz trail by 9. Burke, the pass to Cantor. Can they get it? And it's good on the way in. Yeah, going back to Cantor, he had to wait his turn a bit with the crowded Utah front court.
Well, you think about Favors, Millsap, Al Jefferson, and Cantor. That's a lot of bodies for very few minutes. So the Jazz making the moves in the offseason, really giving their young bigs an opportunity now here to flourish.
Here's Burke following the basket by Chauncey Billups. And the bucket counts, and he's on his way to the free throw line. Try to make it a three-point play.
What a play. The hoop plus the harm.
Excellent concentration on the finish. That's big time.
Well, Kevin, he's capable of dominating every individual matchup physically. He's got incredible strength, and sometimes it's hard to really see on TV, but, you know, when he's on the floor, he gets after you, and you have to be ready to play.
And another thing he's known for all over the league is what an angry shot blocker he is. He does it with an attitude when he knocks it out of the air and sends it behind the shooter.
That one misses for Favors.
You know, it was interesting. Last season, Josh Smith really had issues at the foul line. Started the year off slow and never could get on track. Strange to see, you know, a talented player like that and a guy who's been a reasonable foul shooter in the past have such a dip like that.
59 seconds left in the first half of the game. Now here's Burke. He's guarded by Jennings. That is good. And for Josh Smith, his shooting touch has been a weak point.
Yeah, it has been up and down, inconsistent, but he's a terrific finisher inside. The question throughout his career is, why does he shoot so many outside jumpers? He's a tremendous player in every other facet of the game. You could argue that if not for his suspect shot selection, he'd already have made at least one or more All-Star games. And the lead just grows on that ridiculous offensive sequence.
You know, Clark, that dunk alone would have been spectacular. Never mind it coming at the end of an alley-oop.
Yeah, that just added more to it.
Yeah, what a beautiful connection on that play.
Cantor leads him in there. Burke dishes to Favors. Rejected by Villanueva.
Hard work on the glass once again, fellas. They put a lot of effort into their rebounds.
Well, you get more rebounds, you get more possessions, more shots at the hoop, and oftentimes that decides the game.
Now Burke. He passes to Cantor. Shot's good. Cantor's got 7 points.
The number of points they've scored in the paint already today is pretty eye-opening, Steve.
No, it's off the charts. It really is. And defensively, I mean, they have to start shutting down some of those lanes to the hoop.
That'll do it for the first half. It's Detroit. They lead by 9 and will return shortly.
Now, presented by Sprint. And it's time to break down the first half of action. I hope you're having a great Friday night so far. The Detroit Pistons are ahead against the Jazz at Energy Solutions Arena. And if you like scoring, you love their first half of basketball. They're putting up points, doing it rapidly, in a variety of ways. It's hard to slow them down. Chauncey Billups has been lights out in the first 2 quarters. He has 13 points and is up to his usual tricks, dropping a lot of dimes all over the court. And still hanging in there, the Utah Jazz. One look at their field goal percentage says it all. They're scoring at will. It's Enes Kanter leading them in scoring. Trey Burke has also been a big contributor. That'll wrap things up for me here in the studio. Thanks so much. I'm Damon Bruce. Now let's get back out to Kevin Harlan for the second half of play.
The Sprint Halftime Report, presented by Sprint.